Hey guys, welcome back to Fables Dan, and this is Kim. So today I want to share with you a very cool story and also a very cool concept that I came up with. It's about navigating your personality and sort of having like a personality compass. And basically this video is going to talk about, where I'm going to talk about how we don't necessarily have strengths and weaknesses in our personality. We just have qualities, and those qualities are neutral. And these inherent qualities, like our core personality traits, they can become negatively or positively charged depending on if they're imbalanced or not, or if they are in overdrive, or if they're lacking. And also depends on the people you're with, depends on the psychological or emotional junk that are sort of triggering us to behave in a way that is not really aligned with our authentic and higher self. So I'm mostly going to be talking about that, how I came up with the idea, how that reflects my experiences on my own self-love journey and kind of just my own spiritual journey, and how you can use that to your advantage to cultivate a better relationship with yourself and just feel better about not having certain things in your personality, or having too much of something or too less of something in your personality. Yeah, so how this really started, like how this concept really came into being, how it really solidified, was this epic archetypal dream that I had. There was a time period where I was really frustrated with myself. I was really frustrated because I was just like, why do I keep tripping on the same stone? Why is it so hard for me to be at the forefront of things? I often struggle with receiving attention, or being the center of attention, or wanting to just avoid eye contact or just kind of sit back. Struggling with being in the spotlight, and struggling with personal confidence, and struggling with being assertive and that kind of thing. So there was this one, like for like a couple of weeks, I was just so frustrated with myself. I was really frustrated that I was still struggling the same thing. I mean, I recognized the fact that I was getting better. I was progressively getting better. I was doing much better. I resolved a lot of my shadow issues and better coping strategies, but I was just still so frustrated that I was still tripping on the same stone over and over and over. So I think as I sort of radiated that sense of frustration to the universe, I think my intuition started to pick up stuff that would help me solve that problem. And as I sort of meditated on that question, as I started to self-reflect, I feel this sort of new perspective emerging. And what really packed a punch and just like installed that sort of new program of thinking into my brain was this big, amazing archetypal dream that I had. I could just tell that I was surrounded by energy as soon as I entered that dream. It was humming with cosmic energy. And in that dream, a enormously majestic cosmic creature, that's the only way I could describe it. It looked like a ginormous manta ray, but it was more vertical. It looked like a flag, and it has like a ginormous tail that was really thin, and it reminded me of a manta ray, but it wasn't a manta ray, but it looked like a manta ray. And it carried me. And that cosmic creature, carried me and then dove right into the strands of my DNA. How I knew that it was just impression, it was an impression. It was just intuitively, I knew that it dove right into my DNA strands. It just dove right into my DNA. And it examined several of my lifetimes, and it was talking to me. It was like, oh, you did pretty good here. There are some challenges here, and this lifetime didn't work out. So I have no idea what happened in that lifetime. Maybe something drastic happened. Maybe I didn't work through the issues that I was supposed to work through. I have no idea, but it stopped at this lifetime. It was like this cloud of like within that strands of DNA. It was really hard to describe. It was less visual. It was more like an intuitive feeling. Like it was just saying like, in this lifetime something didn't work out. But let's neutralize all that negative energy and let's channel the positive stuff into this current lifetime. So in my current lifetime. So in this lifetime, you will have the chance to really become yourself, and you have the chance to work through all the issues that you weren't able to work through. So that was really positive, and that was really, really empowering. And I just feel like an immense amount of energy and wisdom and love from this cosmic creature. And it was really cool. So with that, I was kind of, I just entered like a few more scenes within that dream. And I think a couple other things happened, but The one that's most relevant to this video was I encountered another creature, and I have no idea what kind of creature it is, but it really looked like an amoeba, like a kind of like a cellular creature, like in prehistoric, sluggish, like it looked like kind of like a slug and then kind of leafy, and it looked like an amoeba, some kind of cell creature, but it wasn't like microscopic. It was like, just within the dreamscape, right? So I dreamed that this creature was talking to me. It told me about this lifetime, this life form that it chose. And it was saying I chose this life knowing that I'll have certain advantages and disadvantages, and also have a few neutral qualities or attributes about this life form that I've chosen. And I'm okay with that. And that really struck a chord with me because I feel like I always feel like, like I'm always struggling to become more of this or more of that or less of this or less of that. But what if that's just who I am? What if I just need to learn to navigate my personality better and I don't need to change myself? I just need to change my perception of myself. I just need to cultivate a better relationship with myself. And that was really cool. That was really cool insight. And I remember like those two creatures that I encountered, they were iridescent, they were really beautiful. They were just transparent, semi-transparent, and it was just really, really cool. And I came out of that dream. And then with the idea that with the life you've chosen, with the specific sort of experiences that your spirit has chosen to have in a particular lifetime, the personality traits that you're going to develop, the talents and skills that you're going to develop, there's a bunch of advantages to be had when it comes to those qualities, and there's also some disadvantages. And there's also a bunch of neutral qualities that is just sort of like the attributes that you're going to have in this lifetime. And I thought that was really cool. And how that translates to what I want to talk about today is, like with the personality that you have, with the core personality traits that you have, along with your upbringing, culture, society, and everything, you have a set of advantages, that you are going to have, which means your core personality traits can become positively charged in certain situations. And these are advantages that perhaps other personality types don't have access to. And this is something you should treasure. This is something you should appreciate about yourself. And when it comes to those things, when it comes to your weaknesses per se, your personality traits that could become negatively charged in certain situations or when you're around certain people, those aren't necessarily weaknesses that bring you down. They're just sort of things that are part of you that you have to cope with, that is just kind of like a almost neutral. It's like just a reality within your personality. It's just that, it's just like if you're, for example, if you're a naturally empathetic person, some of the pros in your personality is that you're very considerate, you're a great listener, and you're probably very patient, and you are very, you value a lot, you value relationships a lot because you're really empathetic. And you're probably a very non-judgmental person too, just because you can really relate to what other people are feeling. So it's hard for you to really place harsh judgment on people. So those are positive traits, and these traits can become, your empathic, having a lot of empathy in your personality can become positively charged in these circumstances. And they can also become, I guess, somewhat negatively charged. Like the cons in your personality is you probably struggle with being assertive, and you probably struggle with personal boundaries too, and saying no, and you're probably very sentimental at times when you don't keep your emotions in check, and sometimes that could, like sort of cause suffering if you don't sort of navigate through those qualities or traits enough. So another example would be if you look at the other side of the spectrum, say you're very, I guess this isn't really like an opposite personality, but say you're a very assertive and outspoken person. So some of the pros that you may have in your personality when these qualities are positively charged is when you need to be outspoken, right? You're probably naturally confident, you're very expressive, you're not afraid to speak up, you're not afraid to express your own opinions, and you're probably a great leader, and you are let me check my notes, and you probably rarely compromise. It's like personal boundaries isn't really a problem for you. And on the downside, when these traits become negatively charged, when your assertiveness or outspokenness becomes something negative, or when you don't navigate it in a way that's productive. It could become stubbornness. It could become you are very harsh when it comes to judgment. You are quick to judge, and sometimes you say harsh things, or sometimes you say things without thinking. So stuff like that. And when you look at it this way, when you look at the fact that, like, there's no ideal person to become, there's no perfect image that you have to obtain. Like, your core personality traits are part of who you are. They're just part of you, and they're part of you. You just have to learn to be yourself better. You just have to become a better version of yourself, and you just have to know yourself enough and know how you react to certain things, how you navigate certain situations. You just need to learn those things about yourself so you could have strategies or coping mechanisms when it comes to maybe when your personality traits become a negative thing. Because obviously we want to cultivate more positivity when it comes to those traits, but when it comes to the negative traits, you just have to have strategies and coping mechanisms to help you navigate through those situations. And when you think, when you think about it like that, when you sort of approach yourself in this way, there's no, the qualities that you have, it's not like strength versus weaknesses. It's not about like trying to cultivate more strengths or get rid of certain weaknesses. You don't have to get rid of anything that is within yourself. You just have to find better ways to express it. You just have to find ways to cope with it. And that's very liberating in a way, because you're not pressured into negating yourself. You don't have to cut parts of you away. You don't need to feel like you're not good enough, you're not enough to be something. You're enough. You're just you, and you just need to find ways to be the best version of yourself. Like, it's just about this journey that you embark on. And I think that's very liberating. That can be very liberating, because when it comes to self-love, obviously you have to love yourself for who you are. And this sort of, I guess, philosophy or core value that this idea that just you just have to understand yourself better and become better at navigating your personality. That's very freeing, because it really allows you to break free from this paradigm that you have. Like, sometimes, depending on your culture or society, there will be an ideal personality type. For example, like, Western societies, I know Western societies values extroversion more, but if you go to an Eastern country, like an Asian country, like Chinese or Japanese, you'll probably notice that Asian people value introversion more. So it depends on where you are, it depends on where you're from, it depends on what your upbringing is, but there's always this stereotypical ideal image of perfection that is constantly being fed to us, that we grew up with, that we sort of consider as, images that we must cultivate within ourselves as well, things that we have to achieve within our personality. And of course, other than societal expectations and stereotypes in a specific culture, it also depends on your upbringing, right? So maybe your parents or the people around you when you grew up, they promoted one trait over another, and you internalize ideas about what are positive traits to have within yourself, what are the negative traits to have within yourself. And part of doing this, embarking on a journey of self-love, is to examine those influences in your life and to figure out what are the ideas that you were exposed to when you were growing up, when you were, engaging in relationships, or when you were just overall in your life, right? Throughout your life, what were the ideas that you've been exposed to, either through just direct, somebody preached to you, somebody told you this is not okay, but this is okay, or just based on how people reacted to certain traits that you have. Based on, like, have you experienced rejection, or were you like accepted when you acted a certain way? So examining your own narratives and looking at your own experiences, that can shed a lot of light when it comes to getting rid of a lot of baggage, or getting rid of a lot of like psychospiritual junk within your personality that is giving you personality triggers that are sort of not aligned with who you are as a person, that's not aligned with your core personality traits. So I guess my point is, like, part of an important part of this sort of kind of holding this concept or practicing this concept is to do shadow work. And it's to, I know, like, shadow work sounds really, really heavy and scary and sometimes, but it's really just making space for yourself so your spirit can come down and be like, hey, this is who I am, and I finally get to be who I am. So it's about making space. That's why I always say it's about clearing psychological junk and emotional junk. Shadow work is just about that. It's just about processing those things, getting rid of things that don't serve you, and then just incorporating the good things into your personality, and then examining the bad things or seemingly the bad things and see how they can be helpful and stuff. So it's just about making space within your heart, making space within yourself so that you could become a better person. So it doesn't have to be a scary thing. And yeah, I guess going back to what I was saying before about having strategies and coping mechanisms for your own personality, how to, like, a good way to move forward is to learn more about yourself. Like I said, like, you need to examine your experiences and narratives. You need to look at what ideas what are the ideas that you've been exposed to, how you grew up, how you became who you are today, and is there anything you can do to become a better person? It's kind of like you're not trying to cut away parts of yourself. You're not trying to become something that you're not. Imagine that you're a tree. Okay, just kind of use the metaphor of a tree and apply that to your own life. A tree is, for example, if you're a pine tree, you will never grow up to be I'm really terrible with tree names. You will never grow up to be an apple tree. If you aspire to be an apple tree, it's just going to bring you a lot of pain, a lot of bitterness, and a lot of just suffering because you will never become an apple tree. But what you can do is you can recognize the fact that you're a pine tree and you recognize the awesome things about being a pine tree and maybe some of the limitations about being a pine tree, which is you will never bear an apple. But that's fine. That doesn't really take away the value of you being a pine tree. You're just an awesome pine tree and you just have to grow to become a better and bigger and more beautiful pine tree and cut away the weeds, the animals that are like taking a dump at oh, actually that's fertilizing. So as far as that goes, it's all good. But you know what I mean? Like getting rid of the negative influences that is stopping you from growing, that is stopping you from becoming the best of who you are. And I think if you imagine yourself as a tree, that if you frame your experiences as you're just growing, you're just on the journey of growth, you're just on the journey of loving yourself more, growing more, becoming a better version of yourself, like a tree, it could only grow into more of itself, then that's very liberating. That's very liberating when it comes to like, because you don't have to change yourself. You just have to figure out ways to become better at yourself, to become better at being yourself. And I just feel like life is just so much easier when you think like that. Like you don't need to change. You don't need to, like I said, cut away parts of yourself. You don't need to negate or censor yourself. You don't need to create this really rigid cookie cutter and then present it to your spirit and say, you have to go through this filter. This is exactly how you need to come out. And that's just so much, you're just going to give yourself a lot of suffering if you think like that, if you do that to yourself, because your spirit wants to be more. Like, I feel like it always wants to be more. It's about like creating space. It's about cultivating space so your spirit have more room in this physical plane to manifest itself. And if you don't make space for it, if you don't do shadow works, if you're just trying to like limit it in a really rigid and in a really rigid way, then it's just counterproductive. It's not going to get you anywhere. It's just going to bring you more suffering. So yeah, that's the whole idea. That's the whole idea of like, have strengths or weaknesses. You don't have to aspire to have more of something or less of something. You just have to know yourself, know who you are, and find ways to just be the awesome person that you are. And yeah, that's all I want to say for now. I think this is a really big topic. It's something that's very dear to my heart. I think I definitely want to pursue it more in the future. And of course, along with this video, I created a tarot spread that you can check out that will help you examine your core personality traits, and that will help you kind of look at how they can become negatively or positively charged, shadow triggers, personality triggers that you can work on, and then strategies that you can use to help you become like like a level up version of yourself. So the tarot spread, I'll leave the link down in the description box, and I am also including a visualization meditation walkthrough / guide along with this video. Lots of good stuff that you can use. You can use your imagination to work with different aspects of yourself and gain insight and then kind of just, cultivate positive change. So all those good stuff is down in the description box. And I forgot to mention this in my previous video, although I think I did include like a little caption. But if you checked out my previous video about self-love, for that video, I made 10 journal prompts for self-love, which is also on my blog. You can check it out. It's great, 10 great, amazing questions that help you to find self-love, figure out how you brand your own self-love, how you sort of, what's your own experiences of self-love and how you can move forward from there. So lots of great resources on my blog, so make sure you check it out. And follow me on Instagram as well, because I'm putting out a lot of stuff. I think next week I'm mostly going to be putting out cartoons for self-love. Just lots of good self-love stuff coming out. And yeah, special thanks again to Kelly and Maddox for kind of starting this movement, and I just feel like I learned so much, and I'm really happy that I get to be part of it. And before this video gets too long, and until next time, be the hero of your own story, keep calm and tarot on.